You know what really ticks me off? Partisanship. The idea that you can witness Jim Acosta being a dick and disrupting events time and time again. That you can have the Washington Post, the Atlantic, MSNBC, and even former CNN staff and current staff reporting anonymously, or giving statements anonymously, all saying Jim Acosta needs to stop. What he's doing is disgusting. The Atlantic called Jim Acosta's performance journalism dangerous. And I have people saying to me, Tim, you're not defending a free press. Fox News, NBC, and all these other outlets are. Yeah, of course they are. They're big corporate outlets that need to make sure they can maintain their presence in these briefings. By all means. I do think there is an issue if Trump is going to be arbitrarily banning people, but Jim Acosta is not being arbitrarily banned, and CNN still has access to the White House and press briefings, just not Jim Acosta. This is not the hill to die on. Oh God, I hate that saying so much. Here's a story from BuzzFeed. They say, the Justice Department says Trump can kick every reporter out of the White House whenever he wants. A federal judge heard arguments Wednesday on CNN's challenge to the revocation of reporter Jim Acosta's White House hard pass. The judge said he will rule Thursday, which should be pretty fascinating. But let me just say, CNN has become, in my opinion, the worst garbage trash rag. They're essentially a tabloid for television, okay? CNN spent last night reporting on themselves, and they've reported on themselves several times. CNN should recuse themselves from reporting on themselves if they want to be seen as a legitimate news source. Instead, Jim Acosta, time and time again, picks fights with Donald Trump, interrupts the entire press meeting to challenge him and debate him and insert his opinion. The Washington Post said what Jim Acosta is doing is unusual. Journalists aren't supposed to opine. Like I mentioned, The Atlantic said it was dangerous performance journalism. MSNBC Joe Scarborough said his behavior is like something out of Mein Kampf. That's how they've criticized this guy. And you have former staff giving reports to the Washington Examiner saying that Jim Acosta, ugh, he keeps doing this. He's auditioning for a show. At this event, you see this? He stood up. He didn't ask questions. He said, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you on how you characterized the migrant caravan. He says, sir, you know it's not an invasion. Look, I don't care what you think, Jim Acosta. The press briefing is so that journalists can find out what Trump thinks. And yes, Trump lies. Of course he does. All politicians lie. And a lot of people say, but Jim Acosta is speaking truth to power. He's challenging Donald Trump. No. Jim Acosta is standing up and espousing his personal opinion for nearly 3 minutes. And when Donald Trump says, no, you're done, and Jim Acosta keeps asking, Trump still answers his question. Eventually, the intern was going to take the microphone away, and he resisted. He should not resist when the staff come and say, okay, enough, and take your mic away. That's it. End of story, Jim. But Jim wants the story to be him. He wants to have a show. He wants to be famous. Listen, just because Donald Trump is turning politics into WWE rhetoric doesn't mean we should stand for CNN doing the same thing in return. And I'm sure that's how he justifies it. He says, oh, Trump wants to single us out and say we're the enemy of the people, whatever. Then I'm going to make the story about me because Trump started it. Yeah, great. That's exactly what we need. I have been to dozens of Trump rallies. I have spoken to dozens of Trump supporters. They didn't flick me off. They didn't say mean things to me. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because CNN specifically does this for years. For nearly 2 years, Jim Acosta gets up and he espouses his nonsense and he gets into debates. There are many other reporters who have their hands up, who want to ask a question and hear what the president has to say. Not to hear Jim Acosta give his opinion on the migrant caravan. And that's what we have. But you know what? Jim Acosta isn't being banned for being a dick and being disruptive. He's being banned because when the aide tried to take the mic from him, you can see his hand was already up. She's trying to reach around his arm. Totally fair. But when she grabbed the mic, he put his arm down, most likely to try and push her away. It wasn't assault. Those who saying it is, you're wrong. It's not. He was just like, in some jurisdictions you could argue it maybe, but the point is, he was trying to move her arm away. He said, pardon me, ma'am, which is extremely infuriating to me. Like, dude, you know you're breaking the rules. You know you're pushing the boundaries. Saying pardon me means nothing. But when he used his left arm and made contact with her, period, that's enough. You can't have someone stand up and start yelling and refuse to concede the microphone after several minutes. Plain and simple. Okay, let's read the story. A Justice Department official argued Wednesday that President Donald Trump has complete discretion over press access to the White House and can kick out any reporter or all reporters for that matter for any reason. Lawyers for the Justice Department and CNN sparred in federal court in Washington, D.C. over the network's bid to reinstate Jim Acosta's hard pass, which was revoked after a tense exchange with Trump. At a press conference on November 7th, the federal judge overseeing the case did not rule on CNN's request for an immediate order, saying he would announce his decision from the bench the following day. U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly asked Justice Department Deputy Assistant Attorney General James Burnham if the White House could revoke a reporter's press pass because it didn't like their reporting. Burnham said yes. If the president wanted to exclude all reporters from the White House, Burnham said he could do that too. This is an inherently discretionary decision, he said. Kelly asked Burnham, who made the initial decision to take away Acosta's hard pass. Burnham said that was not clear from the record. He said that at minimum, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders made the decision per a statement released by the White House, and the president affirmed it the next day. CNN's lawyer Ted Boutrous argued that the lack of clarity on who made the decision underscored the lack of due process afforded to Acosta. Let me just point something out. Trump is under no obligation to give press conferences. He apparently answered, 68, he answered questions for from 35 reporters for 90 minutes. He answered something like 68 questions. It's funny to me, they call Trump a liar nonstop. And I would say, well, to be fair, does Trump lie? Oh, for sure. Come on. But is it that he's always lying? I think it's fair to say that a lot of what Trump says is wrong, but to imply he's willfully misleading people, well, that's a different story. And that's what the media keeps saying. Trump is lying. He's lying again. Well, hold on. Why are you... Oh, God, it's so frustrating. Call the man wrong. Call him stupid. Don't say he's lying. They're assuming malice. They're assuming intent. When it's fair to say that Trump is rather ill-informed on many issues. Often he's not, but sometimes he is. And sometimes he does lie. You can tell, come on. A lot of people are going to say no, and they're going to give me a thumbs down, but get out of here. Burnham acknowledged that he wasn't aware of any other White House reporters who had lost their credentials in this way, but said that just because other presidents handled press access a certain way did not mean Trump was bound to do so. Kelly asked if it mattered if there were written standards governing these sort of decisions. Burnham said no. Acosta attended Wednesday's credit hearing, bypassing a line of reporters. He greeted several colleagues and members of the public to enter the courtroom with his lawyers. As he passed, a man shouted that Acosta should be lawfully hung. Yeah, that's a bit extreme. Acosta might be an annoying dick, but lawfully hung is an entirely different circumstance. The judge also pressed Boutrous Wednesday on his argument that the decision to strip Acosta of his hard pass was based on content or viewpoint in violation of the First Amendment's speech protections. Kelly noted that the Trump administration didn't provoke access for any other CNN journalist and hadn't previously taken away Acosta's press pass, even as Trump personally criticized him. On Trump's comments that Acosta lost access because he lacked respect, Kelly suggested that could be interpreted multiple ways. Boutrous pointed to Trump's long record of attacking CNN and Acosta specifically on Twitter as fake news. Rudeness is really a code word for, I don't like you being an aggressive reporter, Boutrous said, citing an email sent by Trump's campaign this week about Acosta and CNN's lawsuit saying the president wouldn't put up with liberal bias. However, it's fair to point out, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing, Trump hasn't banned other CNN reporters, just Jim Acosta, after Jim Acosta got somewhat lightly physical with an intern and was causing a disruption. Listen, for the past couple years, he has been called out repeatedly. He was called out a few months ago by The Atlantic for the love of all that is holy. Why would anyone defend this guy? This clearly isn't an issue of free press. Yes, Jim Acosta should be allowed to be disruptive and combative and to debate the president. By all means, it's a First Amendment issue. But Jim Acosta isn't doing this in the name of journalism. He's doing it in the name of pushing his opinion at these events to generate press for himself. He now has over 1 million followers. He's doing a really great job of building his brand, and I'm sure he's going to write a book, and I'm sure everybody who hates Trump is going to be like, oh, Jim, you're the best. And people like me, who could care less one way or the other and just want to know what the hell's going on and want to understand the truth and want to hear what the president has to say about core issues, I'm getting frustrated when I watch these events and I see a legitimate reporter say, Trump, answer this question X, Y, and Z. And then Trump gives a statement. Maybe there'll be a follow-up. Sometimes people interject follow-ups. But Jim Acosta says, I want to challenge you because I think you're wrong to do this, and my opinion is this. I don't care about Jim Acosta's opinion. I care about journalists asking real questions. And for the most part, none of them are doing it. When was the last time you saw a real journalist go in there and ask a hard question? Come on, please. Most of them don't do it. Are they talking about foreign policy? No, they're talking about whatever cable news espouses. Jim Acosta is not special. And Jim Acosta should not be allowed to make a mockery of press briefings to bolster his personal brand. So we're going to learn apparently on Thursday what happens, but here's how they end it. The Justice Department also argued that there was no immediate need for Acosta to get his hard pass back as the litigation proceeded, since dozens of other CNN employees had hard pass access and Acosta could still report on the White House. Plain and simple. I don't know what's going to happen, but I am on the side that believes Jim Acosta should not be allowed to be welcomed back in after he pushed the line in refusing and getting into a physical struggle with that intern over the microphone. End of story. He crossed the line. End of story. CNN has many other reporters. CNN could easily send in another reporter and say, debate and argue with Trump the same as Acosta did. No problem. CNN is not banned, just Jim Acosta personally. And if we don't say to people like Jim Acosta, you are not going to use this time to build your personal brand, then people will just make it worse. There has to be a line drawn somewhere. Jim Acosta, listen, I understand the First Amendment argument by all means. But when the Washington Post, The Atlantic, MSNBC, current CNN staff, former CNN staff all call him out, it's time to get him out. Period. He's one of the most annoying people I've ever seen because he wastes time and he debates and inserts his opinion. Can I please hear legitimate questions from the press? Please. Not from the opinion guy who's hoping to get a late night TV show. Anyway, rant over. Stick around. I've got more videos coming up in just in about a minute or so.